Today on Around Kansas, we have another guest host. This week, Ken Spurgeon joins Deb as they announce an exciting joint project they are working on. Next in our wildlife segment, a fun story about Bob White Quail. Then on the front porch, our guest is PRCA steer wrestler Tanner Brunner. Ron Wilson has another poem, and we end with a tribute to Sidney Toler, aka Charlie Chan.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Welcome to Around Kansas. I've got a great co-host with me this morning, my dear friend Ken Spurgeon. It's great to have you with us. We are obviously not in Kansas. This is not Monument Rocks. This is not Little Jerusalem. This is actually a facsimile of Paladura Canyon. Is that what it's supposed to be? Yeah, Paladura is way cool if you get a chance to come down and see it. So we are in the Republic of Texas. And we just made a big announcement down here. Ken, would you like to tell the news to the good folks?
Sure. So we're down here in Pampa, Texas, and we just made an announcement that we're beginning our documentary called The Contested Plains, which is telling the story of the German family and in the larger picture of the Red River War. And so, yeah, last night we announced that publicly at the Red River War Forum, and we've done several interviews already, and yeah, it's exciting.
It's very exciting, and we did some interviews with Ken and I interviewed each other, which is a lot of fun because we've been talking about the same things for years, yeah. And then to get to actually do the on-camera interview is kind of fun too. But we've interviewed some wonderful people, like we met Bill O'Neill, and I actually met Bill many moons ago, but he was the state historian for Texas for some time. And oh my gosh, does he know everything or what?
Yeah, we were around a lot of bright people, that, you know, we supposedly are historians for a living, but you get around some of these people like Bill O'Neill and Michael Grauer and many others, and you're blown away. Alex Hunt, and you're blown away by their level of knowledge and of course their enthusiasm. They're as enthusiastic as we are, which is really weird, yeah. But super cool too.
We are in the White Deer Land Museum, and I know that I've talked about it before on the show, but they are actually rehabbing this room. This will be the Red River War wing of the museum, and if you think that doesn't have anything to do with Kansas, by golly, you need to come down and take a look at it. And you need to stay tuned for our film. And we've got a train going by. The trains must go by every 10 minutes or something here?
It's often.
It is very often. Love to hear the whistle blow. That's pretty doggone cool. So we've just had a wonderful time. The people down here could not treat us any better. There's always so much hospitality and so much enthusiasm over our shared history. And of course, the focus of the film that we're working on now will be the German family massacre. The German family was attacked in Logan County, Kansas, September 11th, 1874. So we are coming up on a very significant anniversary in a couple of years. So hopefully we'll have our project done by that 150th anniversry, and we'll be able to share it with you. So Ken, you were just saying that you got word the Road to Valhalla will be showing. Where will that be showing? Yeah,
I heard the Road to Valhalla will be showing at an event in Baxter Springs. Baxter Springs has a great Civil War museum, and so if you're in that area and you haven't seen the Road to Valhalla, which details the Kansas-Missouri border war.
Now, when are they going to show it?
It's around October 3rd or 4th, I just heard that yesterday.
I think we're getting that in the show just in time.
Yeah.
Then. That's just perfect. Super. So yeah, you can call the museum and get the information if you need to. Super duper. Well, I'm delighted to have Ken with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
Welcome back to Around Kansas, and once again, thanks to Ken Spurgeon for joining me this morning. So on our wildlife segment this morning, I thought I would talk about quail. What do you know about quail, Ken?
I know that you can hunt them, and I know that when I was younger, I saw a lot more quail than I do now, just like pheasants. In fact, where I'm at in Wichita, we had farmland near Wichita, but we also had farmland in northern Oklahoma. And I used to see a lot more quail and pheasants than I do now.
You know, growing up in Virginia, we had a lot of quail, and I just haven't seen as many. And I understand numbers are down, but every now and then, and Dr. Jake will come home and say he just saw one walking across the road, and I'll spot one every now and then. They are beautiful, beautiful birds, and some mighty good eating. So let's take a look at the life of the little quail.
The northern Bob White Quail is the most well-known native game bird in Kansas, according to Charlie Lee, wildlife management expert for K-State and K-State Research and Extension. The winter months serve as an important time for landowners to consider how to make land more quail-friendly. Bob White Quail have been making a very strong recovery in western Kansas, according to Jason Wagner, wildlife biologist for the Kansas Department of Wildlife Parks and Tourism. Quail populations in western Kansas are boom or bust because they are closely tied to the timing and amount of precipitation. Conditions over the last 3 years have allowed for prime quail habitat during nesting and brood rearing times. Quail hatch peaks in late June and early July. Quail also have a tenacious re-nesting behavior, which allows them to continue to attempt to raise broods until they are successful. Bless their hearts. Bob Whites are known as an edge species. They thrive in areas that have abrupt changes in habitat. These areas are generally where woody vegetation, like shrubs, meets native grasslands, cropland, or weedy areas. One key component is woody escape cover, preferably shrubs that are 3 to 6 feet tall. Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, has helped boost quail populations in Kansas since it began in 1985. Interseeding forbs into CRP will also improve the quality of habitat for bobwhites. Grassed terraces, or native warm season grass waterways, are also excellent ways to improve quail habitat on crop fields. Any native grass strips should be at least 30 feet wide. An easy way to create escape cover for quail is cutting unwanted trees like locust, cedar, and elm, and then loosely stacking them into brush piles. Old windrows and hedgerows can be renovated to further help the local quail population. Trees in windrows can be cut and left where they fall. Osage orange trees can be cut off at ground level and then the stump left unsprayed. The tree will re-sprout at the stump and create the woody escape cover quail require. The edges of riparian areas can be feathered by cutting trees along the edge and leaving the cut trees where they fall. Odd areas or strips in cropland can be left unsprayed and untilled to allow for weed growth that would benefit quail. Any odd areas or weedy areas should be left along the edge of crop fields and positioned close to permanent native grasses or woody vegetation. Leaving a strip of ground along the fence rows or roads undisturbed will create areas of edge for the bobwhites. Cover crops may also benefit quail by providing brood rearing habitat, a food source, and escape cover. Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
This segment brought to you by Bob Schwartz Financial. Values, commitment, transparency.
I'm Dwayne Tames, and my guest today is Tanner Brunner from Ramona, Kansas, PRCA steer wrestler. Tanner, tell us what it's like going down the road.
You know, it just depends on the week, but it seems like this year we've been traveling quite a bit harder than years past. I've won quite a bit of money out of Ponoka, Alberta this summer, and my goals really changed right then and there when I had a chance to make the Canadian finals as well. And so with that, I had to decide to work both sides of the border. And to make the Canadian finals, you have to go to 15 rodeos. So I kind of started a little later in the year than most people do that go to the Canadian finals. And I kind of put a pretty good stress on my traveling plans. But, you know, every week we're going to 4 to 5 rodeos a week, if not more some weeks. And it's a lot of driving. This year I had to do a little bit more flying than I really liked to, jumping around on different people's horses and catching rides places, and just not being able to stay on the horses that we haul and be on them at every rodeo. We learned a lot this year, and we'll take that and move forward towards next year.
You'd referenced curling on different horses. Talk a little bit about how that works and when you're borrowing somebody else's horse that you're crawling on and utilizing a hazer as well. It's talked about all the time about money that's shared. Is there kind of an industry standard that you guys work on?
You know, in our event in the steer wrestling, it's 12.5% for the bulldogging horse and 12.5% for the hazing horse. If you don't win anything, you don't have to pay anything. But if you win some money, you'll have to pay some amount of money to whoever owns the horses. It's just kind of an industry standard. That's kind of, I guess, normal protocol for our event. There's not a whole lot of steer wrestling horses compared to team roping horses or something of that nature. And so you'll see a lot of guys riding the same horse. I mean, it's not uncommon to have 2 or 3 guys on the same horse at a rodeo, or there's a lot of guys that That's how they make a living, is mounting other people on their horses. It's a business for them.
Well, we talk about in the timed events, it's often referenced that such a big part of that is the horsepower that you've got underneath you, and prevalent when you watch rodeo on TV, the finals, for example, that you see 2 or 3 guys curling on the same horse, that an awful lot of money gets won on those that are at the top of the game.
You know, you're exactly right. There is, and those horses that are at the finals are there for a reason. The guys that have made the finals on them, those are the best horses in the world right now, and they're going to ride them there. And if you're an owner, you're not going to not let somebody ride when there's that amount of money up for grabs. It's a good opportunity for both parties, I guess you could say.
You referenced, though, there are things that you learn, I'm sure, about each of those horses, and your time that you spent this year filling the 15 quota to make the finals in Canada, crawling on somebody else's horse. Does that really kind of play into the mental game when you're back in the box?
It does. You know, what's hard about our sport is you have to get on so many different horses. And some horses, they feel different underneath you in the box. They feel different in the field running. Some are short-strided, some are long-strided. Some give you just a little more room in between you and the steer, or a little different go out of the saddle. And I'd say experience is the only way to learn that. And I've been rodeoing hard for a couple of years and just kind of trying to rack up as much experience as I can and do my best.
That's Tanner Brunner from Ramona, Kansas, joining us on the program.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Let us help feed your family.
Out here on the ranch, one of the most important crops we produce is hay. It's very important that we harvest prairie hay, alfalfa, and have hay stored up for winter feed for our livestock. This poem is called Hay There. Growing up here on the ranch, back when I was just a kid, helping bale up hay was the first field job I ever did. I was too young to drive a tractor, too little to do much, but I could go to the hayfield and help with bales and such. My dad would drive the tractor, pulling baler and wagon behind, as we moved across the field where the windrows were aligned. The baler picked up hay and spit out each small square bale, although occasionally we'd stop when the knot tire would fail. The hired man had a hay hook. He'd pull bales up on the wagon and stack 'em up 5 high until the heat would have him dragging. My job was to ride on top, holding together the stack of hay, although I think the hired man put me there to get me out of the way. When I got bigger, I became the one to use that sharp hay hook. Stacking bales up high was the task I undertook. When the hay rack was full, then I would say, "Oh darn," because that meant unloading 'em in that dusty hayloft of the barn. It was a hot and dusty job in the barn with no breeze moving, but when it was all done, my dad was so approving. When we pulled the last bale in with muscles tired and sore, we would say, "Well, that's the bale that I've been looking for." The years have come and gone with the changes that entails. We now use a tractor to move the big round bales. But when the hay is all put up, I still have the urge to say, "Now that's the one we've been looking for," because we're really making hay. Happy trails.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'd be glad to answer it and work with you.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
So, the other day I was riding around the cemeteries in Wichita, and I called Ken, and I said, "So Ken, who do I need to stop and see?" I was at Highland and what's Maple Grove? Which are right across the street from each other on Highland Street.
On
Hillside Street. And so I go over there, and lo and behold, while I'm waiting for Ken to get back to me, stumble across this grave. I'm going to findagrave.com. Charlie Chan. How did Charlie Chan end up in Wichita?
Yeah, there's a lot of great and interesting people that were buried in Highland and Maple Grove, but Sidney Toler, who played kind of the original or more famous Charlie Chan in the 30s and 40s, is buried in Wichita. His family was from Wichita. And unlike a lot of stars who end up in LA or somewhere on the West Coast, he was buried back home.
That was, okay, so that one actually blew my mind. Some of the other people, not so surprising. So I just wish Frankie C. were here because he'd so love this segment. So let's take a look at the life and legend of Charlie Chan.
The last person I expected to find in Wichita's Highland Cemetery was Charlie Chan. Yes, the legendary, though fictional, Chinese detective rests in Kansas. Actually, Sidney Toler is buried here. But in 22 films and for millions of fans, Sidney Toler is Charlie Chan. Toler was born in Warrensburg, Missouri, and was not the first Caucasian to play the role. The character is based on the novels of Earl Durr Biggers, who wanted the Honolulu detective to be a counter to the many fictitious Asian villains on the screen. At the time, it was considered quite progressive and was thought to represent the Asian community in a positive light. Ironically, the series of films has recently come under fire for perpetuating racial stereotypes. Toler assumed the role in 1938 after Swedish actor Warner Oland died that same year. Oland's Chan had softened the character presented in the books, but Toler's Chan was truer to the more cynical, taciturn character Biggers had written. The Charlie Chan movies were churned out, sometimes 2 or 3 a year. Toler's first Chan movie was Charlie Chan in Honolulu in 1938, and his last was The Trap in 1946. Toler's family had moved to the Kansas City area from Virginia just prior to the Civil War. They later moved to Wichita, and Toler and his parents are buried in the Toler family plot in Highland Cemetery.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer it and work with you.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agamandkansas.com.